Hello, my name is Yuri Bobbert and I'm here to explain you how Meetingwizard deals with data protection and information security while you as a facilitator facilitate meetings. So already assuming that you are familiar with drafting an agenda and how to access the application, I'm still going to explain to you how do you access this, which you see here, the facilitator function of Meetingwizard. So you enter this Meetingwizard chauffeur and facilitator dashboard by accessing via multi-factor. So you log in via your username and your password, and by then it's being asked to add an additional factor. So you use your Google Authenticator to double authenticate yourself, and then you're being authorized to access the meeting as a facilitator. You can still invite people to the meeting, and what you do there is that in this case I'm going to use one agenda here as an example. I'm going to start a meeting, and here it's being asked to participate via the QR code or via the email. So the QR code allows participants to enter your session. So you are the host and they are allowed. You see here the meeting ID. What I can do is I can close off this meeting ID during the session. We advise that if it's, for example, a sensitive meeting where you don't want to disclose any information to uninvited participants, to close this. So you press register and it's closed. You literally close the door of the meeting. In this case, I already pre-made an agenda. But if I'm going to make a new agenda, there is an opportunity to, in this case, set the retention scheme of data. I'm going to show that now. So what you see here is I can make an agenda, add agenda, and I can set here the deletion time. So this means the data retention scheme of the data that you are collecting as a facilitator during your session. We normally set it at 1 year, but you can set it at a date. For example, 1 day. That means that you collect the information with Meetingwizard, and after that it's completely deleted. That means that you need to extract that out of our database and bring it to the customer itself, and they take care of the data in a good manner. But it means that Meetingwizard doesn't have any data anymore. It's completely deleted. Any delete with us is a full deletion. There will be no backup available, nothing. So if you set the date short, be aware that you capture the data like CSV or PDF reports yourself to make sure that you have the data at your end. So back to the meeting. So if I'm in a meeting and I'm going to invite people, the participants receive an invite. They can log in themselves and they can enter the consent button. So they consent for two things. One is they consent with the fact that you collect data on behalf of your institute of them with a certain purpose. It can be research purposes, can be business purposes, can be anything. But it is good to explicitly state as a teacher or as a facilitator or as a business person who is facilitating Meetingwizard, what's the purpose of the collection of the data. If it's not personal data, that's not needed. But if you are collecting personal data, you need to ask them. They give consent to it, and you also make explicit that the retention scheme then is set by you. So you set the data retention. If it's deleted within 1 day, or if it's deleted in 2 weeks or a month or whatever, but you do that as a facilitator. That means that this is your obligation. So in the meeting, you have a couple of additional security options. So running the meeting means that I already mentioned that you can close literally the door or open it for new participants, and you can ask them and allow them to participate. Another thing that we do is if you collect this information for your institute, it's being collected in a database that's only accessible for you. So we work with a dedicated database. So no shared database, a dedicated database with a dedicated encryption key. that key is only for you, for the customer. So nobody else has access to the data. The data is stored in the database on Dutch soil. That means it remains in the EU in a data center which is completely ISO 27000 SOC 2 PCI, that's then payment card industry security standards, completely adheres to the highest security standards out there. That means that it's fully safe. Still, there's an option that, for example, in your session want to make sure that people are not taking the data out or do something wrong with the data. So in terms of awareness, it's always good to mention to people, be very cautious by the information that you process in the application. And please, for example, do not take pictures or screenshots of the results, because the results might be shared afterwards by you as a facilitator, and you can sanitize what you want to share or not. So we have a couple of security requirements for the GDPR, the Data Protection Regulation. I've mentioned already a couple of them. Consent is a very important one. Proportionality is an important one, that you make sure that you don't collect too much information with the purpose of your session. And so you have purpose limitation. That's something that you do in the consent button, asking to the participant, do you consent with processing? We also do a bit of an awareness. People receive that notification and they are aware, I am going to participate in a session where I'm going to share confidential information, or if there's no confidential data in it, in the session, then there is no issue. But this is purely focusing this video on if you're processing sensitive or confidential data. That means that confidential data can also be business records, financial figures, anything that's confidential to the organization that you don't want to share with the outside world. You can still share it in Meetingwizard, but be aware that you need to take additional security measures like setting the data retention scheme on a very short period, and be aware that nobody is able to access the meeting. Another thing that we make sure of is the right to erasure. So every customer of Meetingwizard has the right to erasure. Normally, if you, for example, resign the contract with us, we automatically destroy all the data that you have within 30 days. So that's one. And the other right to erasure is that if you ask us to erase the data set in our database, we can immediately do that at any point. And also data portability. So if you want to use your data for other purposes, and it is for some reason still in our database, because you set the data retention scheme, for example, with a year, and the data portability request from you to us is within that year, we can easily provide you with an extract and you can take that with you to your new environment.